The Philistines were the relentless enemy of God's people during this period in their history. This is not the first, and this certainly will not be the last battle between the Israelites and the Philistines, but this is perhaps the most famous one. And in fact, it wasn't a battle between their armies, but between a representative from each army. Neither army wants to descend into the valley of Elah and fight the opponent uphill, and so eventually the Philistines send forward one man, their most fearsome, terrifying warrior, a man who, as you know, is called Goliath, and he is just huge. This hulking great warrior of a man, he will fight on behalf of the Philistines, and it's winner takes all. So Goliath shouts for an opponent to be sent to represent the Israelites. Now, would you want to go and be the one? Think of the pressure riding on that person's shoulders. If they lose, the entire nation will be enslaved or destroyed. Of course, nobody especially wants to go, but there is one person who clearly should go. There is one man who stands out above all the rest in Israel. He is head and shoulders taller than them all, and he bears the burden of king of the people. This is his responsibility. But do we see him going down the valley, ready to fight Goliath? Well, no. Where is he? He's cowering away in a corner somewhere, making promises of riches and rewards to anyone who will rid him of this gigantic problem. Well, one day, David's dad, Jesse, asks him to leave the sheep, for once, and take some supplies to his 3 older brothers who are all in the army. And he arrives just in time to hear Goliath's daily defiance ringing up from the middle of the valley. Verse 10, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." There's a kind of hilarious interaction between David and his brothers. David says, "What are we all waiting for? Why isn't somebody going down to fight him?" And of course, it sounds very easy to say that if you're some 12-year-old, 13-year-old, at no personal risk, standing on the sidelines. Imagine how irritating it is to hear that from all these warriors who don't have the courage they wish they had. Yeah, if I was David's brother, hearing him mouth off, I would be a bit annoyed with him too. But the thing is, this is not empty words from David, and we're about to see that for ourselves. So the conversation between David and his brothers is overheard and reported to the king, and King Saul sends for David. Verse 32, David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, saying, "You are a boy, and he has been a warrior since he was young." But David insists, and he says, "Look, I've fought lions and bears before. What's this guy going to do?" Besides, verse 36, "He has defied the armies of the living God." This is God's honor at stake here, not mine. Well, who knows how long it took for David to persuade King Saul, but eventually Saul says to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Now let's imagine that we are the Israelites, okay? And we're standing on the edge of that valley, watching little David walk down towards Goliath in the middle. And you just know, don't you, that when he gets there, there will be a short, brutal battle, and David's body will be crumpled on the floor, and the fear will then course through your heart at the consequences of it all. At least that's what you think you know. But of course, you would be judging by merely outward appearance. Goliath fights with the sword and the spear, but David fights with the power of the living God. And so there is much more going on here between the two than meets the eye. Goliath shouts that he will feed David's body to the birds. And moments later, that same Goliath is flat on his back with a stone through his skull and a sword through his neck. It is a decisive victory for all God's people and a devastating defeat for his enemies. Now, whenever we try and apply this story, we often try and locate ourselves in it somewhere. Is it true that if we trust God, we will defeat all the giants in our lives? Well, no, not really. At least God doesn't promise that any particular giant will be slain by us. And if you convince yourself that the victory belongs to you this side of eternity, what happens if the cancer doesn't go into remission, if the relationship isn't restored, if the loved one doesn't get better? Suddenly we see that that's a very painful way of understanding this story, to see ourselves as the hero and the difficulties in our lives as the enemy. No, in truth, this story points us to Jesus. Jesus is the king who will defeat the enemy once and for all. And if we are anyone in the story, we're like the Israelites, the ones being represented by one man, one figure, one hero. We're the ones standing on the sidelines saying, "Can someone please save us? Because we can't do it." That's who we are in the story. Our best efforts can't save us, and we know it. And so we need a representative to go and face the enemy on our behalf. Jesus does exactly that. And despite all outward appearance, despite looking like he is about to lose this battle as he goes to the cross on Calvary, Jesus slays the giants of sin and death and Satan, and all those who are on his side are saved through him.